Morning, all. Welcome to our morning chat. So, what I'm going to cover today is what does a project manager do? Key fundamentals around what is actually involved and what constitutes what a project manager throughout the delivery of a project. So, quick, brief intro. So, I'm just going to quickly cover a brief explanation of what a project manager is. Now, a project manager is an individual or a group of individuals who are tasked to deliver a clearly defined deliverables or a group of tasks that get from point A to point B using multiple resources. So, in theory, is delivering a product such as, I don't know, a car or a piece of software or a new computer, whatever it may be, is how does it get from point A all the way to the end as quickly as possible within time and budget. And one of the key important things of a project manager is really that their goal is to actually achieve the end goal of what the customer expects or what a business expects or what a team expects at the end, which ensures that the product they are delivering is what is expected. So let's move on. So what's involved? What does a project manager do? So one of the things that they do is planning. Now, planning is really gathering requirements and defining the project scope. Now, this is the key part of the project. I always stress planning is something that as a project manager must do very well, and it's to make sure that they can understand what they are delivering. Now, the key here is understanding and clearly gathering what the project is and what does it mean. What are we going to get? What do we need to achieve? How do we achieve it? Well, who do we need? From gathering that information, they'll then develop a project timeline and, most importantly, cost. Everybody wants to know how much it's going to cost. So that's a big thing as part of planning. And then, like I said earlier, you're going to clearly identify resources that you need and once you've identified those resources, you'll clearly define what those resources will do. Uh, and that will constitute forming a clear project plan. Now, this could be many formats, and that clearly sets out milestones. Now, milestones are things that you achieve throughout the project. As you can imagine, a project does have a start and an end. It has multiple stages throughout, and that planning stage is really to introduce milestones, saying, well, we've got maybe, let's say, for example, 100 tasks, of which they're all segmented into, let's say, nice equal chunks of 10, and each time you achieve those 10, you achieve the first milestone, and so on. Now, obviously, that's not in reality, it's not as easy as that, but there will be multiple milestones throughout the project which help with other areas which are such as control, which I'll cover later on. Next element is execution. Now, once you've done all your planning, you need to start moving the project forward. So that starts with initially communicating with the team and the stakeholders. Now, the team are the people who are doing the work, and your stakeholders are people who have a vested interest in what your project is about because it either benefits them in some sort of way or are stakeholders who support driving the project forward. So they're the key stakeholders for you. Um, the next element of execution really is ensuring that tasks are being completed on time and within budget. So you've got your plan, you've got to try and track and make sure people are doing what they are saying they're doing, making sure the activities are clearly done, and you are tracking progress all throughout the project. And again, time, making sure that you're delivering on time and within budget is a key requirement here. The other part is monitoring project progress and making necessary adjustments. Now, nothing goes perfectly planned. You will need to constantly plan and keep on top of your activities as a project manager, and then understand. Oh, actually, we're kind of delaying, or we're ahead, which is a nice place to be. Or if you're delaying, how do we get out of that? If you're ahead, okay, what other things can we get on with, etc. So keeping the momentum going. And again, the key part of that execution is also managing issues, risks that come throughout the project. Things such as, oh, somebody's off sick, or we've got delay in the supply chain, we've got a part that's arrived that's broken, we need to do something, etc. And managing all those risks. Now, risks encompass people, assets, incidents that you're out of your control, suppliers. So that's a huge responsibility in managing those. Next, you move on to control. Now, control is really managing the project changes. Now, when you start the project, you have a clear defined objective to achieve, a scope as it's called within project management. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that the world has stood still and we're in the same location and doing the same thing. Things change, and as part of the project you need to incorporate those changes, not simply just by saying yes, but there have to be control measures. So managing the change throughout the project, that doesn't simply mean just changing the project, changing the people, changing requirements. The business has suddenly decided that they're going to increase an investment in such an area, so there's a requirement for you to change the direction you're going in, etc. So there's a huge amount of change that needs to be managed, and it needs to be done correctly, so that you incorporate time and budget into that calculation. The other thing is ensuring quality standards are met. Now, this is throughout, making sure you are ensuring that when you achieve something, that you've achieved it to the right standards, that you've achieved the right goals, the quality measures are put in, any ISO regulations are complied to, any quality control, such as making sure that a machine item has certain engineering qualities, etc. Whatever it may be, you need to make sure you are managing the quality, because at the end, if you don't manage the quality, your product or deliverables that you deliver could be inferior, and therefore could make the project null and void. Um, it, that's as part of the other thing is also reviewing and reporting project status throughout the whole project. You need to report back and make sure what's going on. So a project manager would make sure that they're documenting project progress and presenting that in like project status reports. So those are either weekly, monthly, daily, whatever's agreed within the project, so that people know where you're going, whether you're within budget, whether you're ahead of schedule, you are delayed, what risks you have, etc. All those things need to be considered in that control measure of having a project status. And those project status come in many forms. Sometimes a simple email, a proper report, slide decks. There's multiple ways of doing this. And then the other thing is managing your project documentation. These are all control mechanisms. So the traditional formats, such as a PID, which is a project initiation document, your RAID log, which are risks, actions, issues that you need to manage, and dependencies will be logged, so that you track those throughout your project. Your budget planner, your resource planner. There's your Gantt chart within project management, making sure that plan's kept up to date. If you're running sprints, your sprints are up to date. Kanban boards are kept updated, etc., and so forth. So there's a whole raft of things that you need to keep managing. So hopefully by this time you've managed and got everything through. You've gone through the control stages. The final part is actually closing the project. So you've got to the end. Really is making sure that you've completed all the project deliverables, and if you've done that, then you've got a tick in the box. Have you missed anything? You need to catch up. Closing out any project finances. So most projects have finances or some sort of cost around it, making sure that you stayed within budget and that you've got all your change control in place, which is one of the control measures we spoke about. And then finally, really just having a bit of a project review with your team, etc., just to understand anything you've learned. Now, lessons learned is something that usually gets skipped in many projects because they quickly move on to the next project. But however, it's a very useful tool to constantly teach others how things could be done better. It could improve business process. It could improve yourself as a project manager on how you do things. So it's really good. So in conclusion, so the recap, what does a project manager do? It's really just making sure they are defining what's going to be delivered. Once they define it, they execute and move that forward. and then they use controlling measures to make sure that the project is moving forward in the right direction. And then at the end, when you get to the end, we are making sure we've closed the project in a sensible and a clear manner so that we can hand over and it's concluded in a professional manner. But again, project management is not a fire. In my experience, is not a science. The textbooks will teach you everything, but in reality, common sense is a big thing. A part of project management, using your common sense to move things forward, and having great people skills is one of the key advantages that will give you, what project manager will help to deliver the end goal. That concludes today's discussion. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please post them.